All right, so resuming from the last part of this project, we're at a point where we're mocking things up and trying to get all the routing for the wires and the cables, and we ran into an impasse here with the throttle cable. It's a good 4 inches off where it's supposed to be for the carburetor's throttle linkage. So there's the quick solution is you can purchase. There's a couple of different ways you can attack this. You can purchase a new doghouse fan shroud, and those are, they're smaller and they're rounder. They don't have this flat part on the top. But the doghouse actually refers to this doghouse right here. There's a box where the fan shroud goes, and that is basically what you're going to be doing is buying a new fan shroud. That's about $100. That's one solution. If you don't want to spend the money, however, you can actually drill a hole and reposition this throttle cable and line it up with where the throttle is going to go. If you were to buy a brand new one, you could get one that has the throttle cable on the inside of the tower location. So right now this goes on the left-hand side of the oil cooler tower, right? So we're going to move this throttle cable to the right-hand side of that, and it'll be lined up more directly with this mount right here. So that's what we're going to do today straight away, and then we'll get into some other things. But let's go ahead and take this all back apart. Sometimes you have to take 2 steps forward, take 1 step back. But that's what we're doing. We're going to take 1 step back. We're gonna remove all the stuff that we've got. We're gonna pull the fan shroud off. But before we do that, I'm gonna run a laser through here, and we're gonna mark exactly where that needs to be, and then I'm gonna mark down here, so that I can see. Once I take the fan shroud off, I want to confirm that if I drill that hole, it'll be on the right-hand side of that oil cooling tower. So let's go ahead and get started with that. We'll start taking things apart and get this thing laid out. All right, so I got the fan shroud off, and I've made a mark right there on the cross member, and it kind of matches up with the throttle, where the throttle cable will be. And so the issue is not so much that's where the throttle wants to be, but if you see through this right here, this is the oil cooler. So obviously we can't go on through the edge of the oil cooler. We have to go a little bit to the left, or we have to go a little bit further to the right. And then the other thing to consider is, if you can see this bump right here, where my hand is, way back here, that bump is right there. That's that little bump right there. So that would have to be where we're going to have the throttle cable move from this side to that side. Anything further over, and you run into the transfer case. So I think we're going to have to put it at that little bump. Figure out where that bump is, and then move the cable from that hole to this hole. Well, that means that we're going to have to move over just about a ½ inch. And it looks like from here, it looks like we can afford a ½ inch. It's going to be a little bit further that direction, but it'll still match up. And we won't have to worry about any kind of hunky linkage or anything like that. We won't have to buy a new doghouse fan shroud. We can use everything that's existing. Just to drill a few holes. So let's go ahead and make some measurements, and once I get those all laid out, we'll transcribe those, and I'll record what measurements we ended up with, so that you can when you get to this point, you'll know what holes to drill and where. All right, moving forward. All right, so there you go. Looks like we got it where it needs to be. Nice and easy moving. Goes all the way through to the back side. Comes out right here on this little bump, which you can see the ridge right here is where the limit of the oil cooler is right here. So it's just on the outside, on the inside of the oil cooler, right up in here. And hopefully we're going to get this into place. I think that this will match up with that bump. I went back there with a pencil and I drew a little line. I couldn't see if that line was over here, but even if it's over here, it's a little further over and it's just as easy. So you can't go any further, that direction. But this is where it's at. So let me flip it over and let you show you where it was in respect to some of the air cooling vanes. All right, so upside down, you can see it goes in right here. And you can see it goes underneath this little panel right there, and there's another piece of metal that you have to cut through right there, and then it comes out in the back. So it doesn't interfere with anything. It doesn't touch the fan. It doesn't interfere with the oil cooler. So I think we got it in exactly the optimal position. Again, we'll take some final measurements once we're certain that it's exactly where we want it to be on the back side. And then we'll get you that information later in a still shot. There you go. We got this set in place again. I have the throttle shaft in place. It goes all the way through. It's all the way to its home. And here we go. And when you throw the light in the back, you can see right there exactly where that goes. It is right smack right on that bump. All right, so we'll mark that and put another 3/8 inch hole in there, maybe make a little bit bigger hole just to give me some flex. But looks like that is going to be the way that is done. Then we just got to get up underneath there and route that throttle cable to that position, and we'll have this portion of the project done. That was a little easier than I thought, although it was really hard to get all the measurements. Once I measured twice and cut once, we got it all worked out. All right, so now I got to take this fan shroud off one more time and then drill another hole, and then we can put it back in for good. All right, so here you can see I've made a little mark right there. That's where the center of that pole is coming out. So we're going to go ahead and start that as the center of our drill hole, and then I'm going to come back and rerun that throttle cable through so we can get those two shafts to interact together. So anyway, I just wanted to take a good mark of where it is that it's going to come through. What I ended up doing was running a shaft through and then running a coat hanger through and marking it really good with a coat hanger. So I just wanted to make sure I got an absolute center line of where that's going to go. All right, so there's the hole drilled. Right on where I had that line, I used a stepping drill rather than a traditional drill bit. These things go through sheet metal like butter because they take small increments at a time instead of just trying to get the whole thing at once. And I marked the total width with a piece of electrical tape. So this should fit going through the throttle cable going through this way. So now we just have to make sure that we have, there's a little piece of rubber back there that has to be cut, but this is where the throttle cable is going to go through, and then we're going to join it up. So let's go ahead and do some throttle cable routing underneath back under the axle. All right, here you can see with this shaft in the hole. Put that in there. You can see interaction with that piece of rubber shrouding. That's the seal for the shroud that keeps the air from under the car from mixing with the air that goes into the fan shroud. So we're gonna make a little recess in this, cut a little hole in this piece of rubber right here, so we can pass this throttle cable through. You can see how it touches that piece of rubber. But that's what we need to do next, is cut that piece of rubber. Okay, so coming in from the driver's side rear wheel well, you can see you can get access to a series of lines that run in back here. This right here is the throttle cable. This is our new fuel line that we installed for the project. The old one was getting kind of old, and I needed a longer one that would fit all the way up to where the carburetor went, and I didn't want to have a union. I'd much rather have a single, so I removed the old one and put a single long one in there. But anyway, back on the throttle cable. This right here is the current position of the throttle cable. It goes in right up here at the shroud, and we're going to move it back there. You can see the new hole, and so everything's going to kind of move over to the other side. And we got to do some routing to make sure that we don't interfere with any of the linkages or anything here with the transmission. This right here is the clutch. So we want to make sure we don't have the throttle interfering with that. So we got to do a little bit of linkage routing. But let's cut from here and then cut back in once we get it switched over. All right, so from this angle you can see that I've exposed the new access point, and here I've routed the throttle cable to where it's going to connect. And you see there's like a flange that's supposed to fit over the top of that new little tube. So all I need to do is run the cable back through that tube and mate those two up, and we'll be golden. I won't have to move that fan shroud anymore. Geez, I probably had that thing on and off 8 times now. All right, so I just wanted to give a really good graphic representation. I had to move some of the rubber. You had to see there's some rubber I had to slice open to make that so it would fit through. And so I just wanted to get a good picture of it before I closed it all up so you could see where that comes out. Also, you'll notice there's a little dent right there in the metalwork for the body, because you know, a lot of these vehicles are made to work with all different kinds of configurations, and in this case that metalwork was set so that you could have your throttle cable there if you had a carbureted intake as opposed to a fuel injection. So that was kind of a benefit. Otherwise that little hole right there would have taken some body work to make work. So it's all playing in our favor. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close that up, and then we'll get working on the other side. There you go, all connected. I don't know if you can see it from behind the clutch. Let's see if I can get a better view. There's the cable going up and routed. There's the connector right behind the clutch. Here you go. It's a better view. You can see the connection right here where it joins up. Right there. Okay. All good. All right, and there you have it. There's your throttle cable properly placed, coming out right where the linkage for the future carburetor is going to be. It used to be over here in this hole, and now it's on this hole. So I think we're going to close up the video on that. This is a really good place to define this task. This is moving the throttle cable from outside of the oil cooler to the inside of the oil cooler to facilitate the installation of a conversion kit from fuel injection to carbureted on a 1979 Volkswagen Super Beetle. Make sure you subscribe and follow the channel. The next thing we're going to be doing on here is installing the carburetor, and then we got to go up front and install a new fuel pump. The fuel pump on the fuel injection was controlled by a solenoid back in the back of the back seat, and we're going to bypass that too. So there's a few more steps before we get this thing running, just like a regular Volkswagen. But make sure you follow the channel so you can see the next steps. That's all I got today. Cheers.